At the time when this happened, I never thought there'd be an ad hoc or a madlanga. I thought it was a simple case of possible corruption. So I didn't write down the dates. And I've actually lost the device that I had in my possession at the time, which should have made things much more easier, but I don't have it. So the best I can do is sometimes go approximately. Where I've been able to fill in dates is where I could follow an email trail. But I came to my office like I normally do. When I used to come to Parliament every day, it was about 6:15. I know it was in the last week of October. That I know for a fact. Whether it was the 23rd, the 24th, the 25th, I can't say. I don't want to be accused of perjuring myself later. But I found in my office floor an envelope. I assumed it was slipped under the door. I opened the envelope, and inside it, there appeared to be evidence of criminality. And it was evidence that was implicating some very senior people within the SAPS. There was one name that I knew and others that I didn't. Because the cases are now before the courts, I can't speak too much on the merits of the case because I don't want to give anyone a loophole of walking out on a technicality. But I was unsure as to what to do with the documentation. Remember that there was no JSCI at the time. And I don't have direct access to the Minister of Intelligence or Safe Security. So what I decided to do was to lay criminal charges. But before I did that, I went and saw a very good friend of mine. He's now deceased, the late Major General Andre Lincoln of the AGU. It was on his suggestion that I went to the police station. So what I did is I went to Grand Central Police Station the next day. And I think it was the next day, or it might have been the day after that. And I laid criminal charges against Generals Komalo, Lushaba, and Madondo.
Can I just ask before you move on that? You've given us an indication that that at the time there was no JSCI, there was no committee basically that you could have gone to and informed them about the information. So it seems that you were clearly aware that the information was classified. But you also say in your statement that you were not sure whether these documents are fraudulent. So the question that immediately comes to mind is, why did you not, one, make an effort to first verify whether these documents were in fact valid? And secondly, regardless of whether these documents are authentic, why did you not first investigate who did that, who placed the documents there? Because these are classified documents.
Can I answer? Thank you, Advocate. Only one of the documents was marked classified. Only one. I think there were 4. I'm not an investigator. Just like General Kumalo is not an investigator, just like General Mkwanazi is not an investigator. That's why we have investigators. If I was to investigate this thing, I'd probably bark up the wrong tree. I gave it to the experts, the South African Police Services. What I did is I opened the docket. The officer that took the docket from me asked me for the evidence because I gave a lengthy statement. I said, no, I will give it to the investigating officer when he calls, because I didn't want to hand classified information to just anybody. I left that police station and I received a phone call from General Lincoln, he was very well connected within the SAPS. And I was shocked when he told me that my documents, my dockets had been collected by the provincial office. I didn't even know what that meant. I said, General, is this procedural? He said, no. I said, then what does it mean? He said, they're trying to cover it up. I asked him, why, General, are you saying this? He said, the procedure, son, is what he used to call me sarcastically, is as such. You lay the charge. The docket then gets given to the head of detectives. He will read the docket and he will assign it to a detective. He says, provincial does not get involved. Something's wrong.
Mr. Adams, just before you go, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have to give more, I'm just going to ask for more clarity in relation to the information, because as you know, and I've raised this with you during the consultation, there's a lot of details missing in the information that you've given. And again, I'd just like to go back to the you not taking the necessary steps to verify the information.
Oh.
You say you're not an investigator, but you are a member of the police portfolio committee. We've heard from General Mkhwanazi, for instance, that when matters are discussed at the portfolio committee and something comes up that is considered classified, the meeting would be advised not to bring it to that particular committee, but to then refer it to the relevant committee, which is the JSCI. So you're quite familiar that information must be treated a certain way. You mentioned miss in your statement. I don't think your answer that you're not an investigator is sufficient, because you know better as a portfolio committee member.
I actually do agree with you, Advocate. So on the issue of the validation of the documentation, I had no means to do that, and I didn't want to bring it to the police committee, because you can ask Honorable Skosana, you can ask Honorable James and Matthys, the fights we have within that committee with regards to classification. You can also ask Honorable Shongwe, I saw that look, because it is my understanding that classification of crime is a crime. And I'm backed up in that with the Vuma versus IPID case and the MIS document, because we've brought criminality to the police portfolio where the generals hide behind classification. Now, our founding document, the Constitution, it makes no provision for the classification of crime. And therefore, I was only going to do this one way, whatever the result.
Could you then tell the members what you considered the crime to have been? Because what we have in front of us is a statement by you saying you were not sure whether the documents were fraudulent. So you were also questioning the authenticity thereof, but you seem to have been convinced that this is a crime.
100%.
And on what basis did you then decide to go?
Look, I looked at the sorry, Advocate, thank you. I looked at the documents and I said to myself, here's a possibility that you could be set up, because someone's expecting you to run to the media and you're going to end up with egg in your face. On the flip side of that coin was, this could be real. Now, the best people, in my view, to make that call would be the South African Police Services. And that's why I took it there.
Can you just maybe elaborate on what information you then subsequently gave to SAPS when you went and opened the docket? Because you said you did not give any evidence. So what did you give to SAPS to satisfy them that what you've given them would be enough to pursue an investigation?
I gave them a sketch of what the documents claimed, but I did not hand them any hard copies of the evidence.
You're not saying much.
No.
What do you mean by a sketch?
I essentially told them that this general is accused of defeating the ends of justice on this date, and this general is accused of fraud, may have not accused, defeated the end, may have defeated the ends of justice on this date. This general might have committed fraud on this date, etc., and that's it.
You may continue. You were then called by Colonel Lincoln and informed on what did he tell you? Because as you've just informed the House, the information that you've given in your dockets is a sketch. So why would he call you out of concern that the information will be taken further? Because it's just basically nothing.
General Lincoln said to me that if this is what they've done, they are going to cover this thing up. I asked him, General, what do we do? He said, you walk away. I said, why? He said, because people are going to die before this thing goes to court. I said, General, are you serious? He said, 100%. I said, I'm not going to walk away, and I'm certainly not scared of death. What do I do? He said, son, you open this docket, you open these cases in another province, let's see what happens. I flew to Johannesburg and I opened the same cases at Orlando, at the Orlando, and Langlaagte police stations. But when I was there, I waited. I made it clear I was not going to leave until I received my case numbers, because I wanted this thing registered. Once that was done, the very next day, I emailed the minister, the suspended minister, Mkhunu. And I said to the minister that my dockets have been irregularly collected here in Cape Town because I'm complaining to the minister. I didn't know what course of action the minister would take. Excuse me. But I did demand from the minister that someone outside of the SAPS investigate this case. General Lincoln gave me a telephone number for the IDAC, which I contacted. I cannot remember who I spoke to, but I was contacted by Brigadier Permo. And not the very next day, or maybe the day after that, by the IGI of Intelligence, Mr. Imtiaz Faisal. He asked me about the cases I laid and asked if I'd come to his office because his office may have an interest in some of the allegations. I flew to Johannesburg. I met with the IG for maybe 10 minutes. He handed me over to Advocate Governor, and I gave Advocate Governor the information.
Before you go on, because I don't want us to get too deep into it, because we're going to try to assist the committee with dates so that when they have assessed the evidence, that they can have some sort of chronology, and also so that you can address Mkonazi's version around these allegations. I know you said you don't remember any of these dates, but I'm going to provide you with the dates that he's given to us, and then you could just maybe confirm whether these are correct or whether what he said was wrong.
I think, Advocate, that you should provide the dates, but please understand, I'm not going to argue with these dates because I'll be arguing out of stupidity then. I'll go with the dates he's given.
No, but what we're trying to do with going through those dates and why your comment is so important in respect of those dates was that what General Mkonazi was said to us was that there appears to have been a haste in which you dealt with the matter. You leave out some crucial information here in your statement. For instance, you went to the minister not once, but twice, and that is not apparent from your statement. And the time frames within which you went to the minister and the time frames within which the minister then subsequently approached in the inspectorate to deal with your complaint, there are 1-2 days in between. And so that, to what General Mkonazi has told the committee, appears to suggest that there was something behind the urgency within which you dealt with the matter. And so that is why it is so important that we take the time and get an explanation from you why you did things in such a hurry.
Okay.
Okay. So in paragraph 9 of your statement, you say that the charges were laid on the 29th of October. Was it on the 29th of October? Can you maybe look at your statement? This is in paragraph 9.
I remember that date. It is the 29th of October, I think.
General Mkonazi says the 30th, but you in your statement say the 29th. That's why I'm asking.
The 29th of October in Cape Town, the 30th in Johannesburg.
Okay, so you say it's the 29th. Is General Mkonazi then incorrect by saying it's
I do believe he's incorrect.
He has attached I believe, the front page of the cases, but we can verify that. You strongly feel that it was on the 29th of October, even though you...
Advocate, if I'm wrong, I'll own it, but I do believe it was the 29th. I think so.
Okay. So 29th of October, you opened up cases in Cape Town. There's very little information in the docket. It's a sketch that you've provided. And subsequently, which you say the next day, the 31st of October, you went to Joburg because you had received a call from General Lincoln.
Yes, ma'am.
So on the 31st of October, you then rushed to Joburg to open up another docket.
Was it the 30th or the 31st? But
the 31st.
The 30th. Okay, let's go with the 31st.
The 31st of October. And so now on the 1st, after you've opened up this docket in Johannesburg, on the 1st, you then write to the minister. Can you explain why you would open up? You've given an explanation about Cape Town, and you said you received a call from Lincoln. And Joburg, why after you've opened up a charge in Joburg, you then on the 1st complain to the minister and you complain about members of SAPS specifically, and you say that they've intercepted your dockets?
So let's just follow the trail. I wasn't drunk or out of my mind when I laid the charges here at Grand Central, right here, which is when the dockets disappeared. I have to go to Johannesburg at taxpayers' expense to lay the same charges. I think I'm within my right to complain to the minister. The fact that the minister acts speedily, the minister can answer if that is his standard turnaround time. I, for one, as a citizen of a country where service delivery is suffering, I'm very happy that we have a minister that reacts speedily. I wish all of us had.
But we want to understand why, after you've laid charges in Johannesburg on the 31st, you then complain about members of SAPS to the minister. What happened in Johannesburg that made you believe that your information was being intercepted? And remember, you've told us that these are just sketches. This is not even documents containing evidence. So what happened that made you believe that your information, your sketch, is being intercepted?
So, Advocate, when they intercept my dockets, which they did, the plan was that these allegations must never be investigated. Why would I not complain about that? Please understand where I'm from.
Why? What happened in Joburg? That's the question. Not.
No,
we hear you.
Nothing happened in Joburg except that I had the suspicion that they could do the same thing again. Because after what happened in Cape Town, it was clear to me that here is a plot going on that means these dockets will not be investigated. It's for this reason that I drew the attention of the minister to it.
So you then write this email to the minister on the 1st of November, and we have a copy of that email in the bundle. And this email that you wrote to the minister is also there's very little information in there. You basically just tell the minister on the 1st of November that you suspect that your information might be intercepted, and you give him the case numbers and you ask him to intervene.
I'm just looking for it.
Okay, let me just try to give you the page number. I think it's 286.
First or second bundle, Advocate?
It's on page 283. At the bottom of the page. Of this bundle, of the Mkonazi.
Oh, yeah.
Mkonazi bundle, yes. 283, yes.
Just a second, I'm struggling with one hand. Okay, on page 283.
Okay.
At the bottom.
So you wrote to the minister and you said that I've opened cases in the Western Cape on a number of senior SAPS personnel, and you gave the case numbers. You do not say who these senior officials are. And you said, I was told the dockets were intercepted. In my quest for justice, I traveled to Johannesburg and opened the following dockets. And you proceeded with the case numbers. And then you say, however, I've been notified, which is contrary to what you said. You said it was on your own suspicion. You said, I've been notified that the Gauteng Police Department has followed the same modus operandi and is interfering in the investigative process. So were you not being truthful to the minister?
No. Sorry, Advocate. I was told that they're probably going to follow the same thing.
Who told you that?
The late General Andre Lincoln. When I look at this email, could have worded this thing better. I could have. But that's just me using the wrong word. I should have said suspect that they may use the same modus operandi.
And then you proceeded to humbly ask for the minister to intervene to ensure the integrity of the investigative process. There's nothing else. There's no report on what the nature of the charges are, or unless if there was there more information attached to this email?
You must remember, if there's one thing that I cannot be caned about here, is the fact that I didn't tell anybody what's in the docket. Not even the minister.
Okay. But then when we see that the minister, in less than an hour, on the same date, on that same page 283, the chief of staff writes to the national commissioner in less than an hour and informs the minister, the national commissioner's office, that the minister has received this complaint and that they want a report within 3 days.
If I was the minister, I'd want the report the next day. And I'll tell you why,
Without any information?
if I may. I've been to court so many times with people whose dockets have gone missing. It is a very serious problem. It is a very serious problem. The fact that the minister's office replies within 1 hour tells me that they may also see this as a serious problem. I understand that certain generals may not see this as a serious problem, but I do appreciate the fact that they responded promptly. I didn't expect them to respond that promptly, but I'm certainly not going to say no thank you to it. If you read my email, I'm not asking for a special favor. I'm telling the minister that this is what happened and I need you to intervene.
So General Mkhwanazi did in fact tell this committee what the nature of the charges were that you have laid against these senior officials. And, you know, if the minister at least had the benefit of that kind of information, I think it would more or less sort of have been made, it would have made more sense as to why you would, in a haste, refer the matter to the National Commissioner. But he didn't even have that, what we have now in front of us.
So I'm complaining as a member of parliament about a very serious issue that happens at our police stations all the time. And there are people complaining that we have an effective ministry. Is that what I'm understanding? I'm asking because I'm not understanding. You know, the normal complaint is that SAPS doesn't respond. They take too long to respond. They don't answer their phones, yada, yada. I can show you emails that I've sent that don't get responses. I'm happy. I'm extremely happy. Let me put it on the record that the minister's office responded promptly. But if you want to know why they responded within an hour, you're asking the wrong person, advocate. That question should be posed to the minister.
This shouldn't be, the questions posed shouldn't be viewed in a negative light. It's just for clarity's sake.
No.
And if the minister's office was that responsive, then it is in fact a great thing. I think it tells citizens that they now can, if there's a complaint that they have, this is the kind of immediate response. And like you've said, a lot of people have problems with dockets, and it appears that if they write to the minister, they'll get a response in less than 30 minutes.
In a perfect world, let's hope it happens.
We then know that after the minister then sent this email to the Inspectorate to provide a report by the force. I mean, to the National Commissioner, who then subsequently requested the Inspectorate to intervene. The Inspectorate then 3 days later furnishes the minister a report, and part of the complaints that they've raised or issues that they've raised is that the information is simply not enough to pursue, to conduct a proper investigation. But what they then also said is that they recommended that the minister afford them more time, a period of 10 days, to get in touch with you and to conduct further investigations. And then they will come back to the report to the minister to be able to indicate what's happening on these matters. Were you aware of that?
Yes. I heard about that. I wasn't told by the minister. I wasn't emailed, but I'd heard about that.
So if you've heard about that, why then did you, on the 10th of November, before expiry of that 10-day period, write to the minister again and then requested the minister to refer your complaint to an independent investigative body?
I don't trust the South African police services. I have no faith in the South African police services.
The Minister of Police is Police Services.
Yeah.
And he dealt with the complaint you've given him and he's referred it to the National Commissioner.
The Minister of Police is the executive arm of the South African police services. The operational and functional part of it is what we don't trust.
You don't trust the way the minister dealt with your complaint?
No, I trust the minister to deal with my complaint. I also trust these generals to pull the wool over the minister's eyes. Understand, I've raised various things within portfolio. These people have lied to Parliament over and over again. I did not trust them to investigate themselves. If you would allow me to expand. One of the charges I laid was against General Dumisani Kumalo, who was arrested and is now before the court. He's the DivCom of crime intelligence. It's probably the most sensitive position in the country, well, within SAPS in the country. His appointment was supposed to be ratified by Parliament. Parliament was never notified of his appointment. Do you understand where I'm going? When I lay charges against the same man who was acting in his position with a cooked security clearance, listen to others say it, it was cooked. It was fraudulent. When I lay charges against this man, the dockets miraculously get collected by the provincial office. I did not trust these people to investigate. This is why I asked the minister for someone outside of SAPS to investigate. You're asking the wolf to investigate the wolf. It doesn't make any sense.
What's even more confusing, Mr. Adams, is you did go to the police and you open up a charge here in Cape Town. This wolf. You did go to Gauteng to open up a charge. You did write to the minister to intervene because you believed that there were no progress on your charges. You then do not trust how the minister dealt with the complaint because he's written to the National Commissioner on your behalf. You're aware of it. You've just said it yourself. So it's very confusing how you would have wanted the investigation to take place if you never allowed them the chance, if you never given them the opportunity. Why did you go there in the first place then?
Advocate, I don't know of another place to lay a charge but the police. So I had to go to the wolf. Then the dockets, let's say they disappeared for a while. They did. Then I complained to the only person I could complain to, the minister. There was no one else to complain with. So I deal with what I have in front of me. But when given the option of not dealing with these boys in blue, I grabbed it. When I was told that the IDAC could investigate this, I grabbed the opportunity. So yes, I dealt with the wolf. Because if you could tell me that I could go and lay charges against General Kumalo at the Civic Center and use a counselor to lay the charges, I would have spoken to a counselor. If somebody had told me that I could lay charges against General Lushaba at Groote Schuur Hospital by speaking to a doctor, I would have done that. But in order to lay charges and get a case number, I had to go to the police station. I hope that makes sense to you.
Not quite, but I'm sure I'll understand as you explain later on. What did you expect the minister to do when you went to him with your complaints? Did you expect him to do what?
I was hoping that the minister would ask what happened to these case dockets. I'm not privy. I wasn't privy to the interaction between the minister and the NASCOM. I wanted some type of action and I wanted some type of disciplinary action leveled against the person who I still don't know who it was that came to collect the dockets. Now that didn't happen.
Ms. Adams, you serve on the police portfolio committee. You know, when something gets referred to the minister, it's high level. The minister would then call on other resources like he did here with the National Commissioner. National Commissioner in turn turns to the Inspectorate, who would then ask senior officials to deal with something that comes from the minister. In a South Africa where there are so many things happening that require SAPS attention, that's taking away resources, especially if you know from day one that you were never seriously pursuing these charges with the police because you never trusted them.
That is 100% correct. And that is why the person who collected the dockets should be prosecuted. All I'm saying to you is I laid the charges. It was the civic thing to do in my mind. When the dockets were collected by the provincial office illegally, what was I supposed to do, advocate? What Mkwanazi wants me to do? Shut up and go away. Maybe that is the lesson that we should send to everybody who's serious about fighting crime in this country. Don't bother. Like, I'm sitting here and I know exactly what certain people are thinking without accusing anyone. I did the right thing. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I did the right thing. I've asked within the police portfolio why General Kumalo was allowed to buy cell phone grabbers, obsolete cell phone grabbers that have never worked. I wasn't given an answer. Do you understand how the police portfolio functions?
Not
These people operate with impunity. They do as they want, when they want. It's why they went out buying hotels with our tax money. And I know I'm jumping. I'm trying to put it in perspective for you.
okay. So maybe let's go back to the timeline. You then, like I've indicated, wrote to the minister again on the 10th, and you asked him to refer the matter to an independent investigative body after he's received the report from the Inspectorate that recommended that he